Hey everybody, it's You Had to Ask, the show where I answer your questions, and this week's first question comes to me from Radical Bacon, who asks, how did you and your wife meet? Was it love at first sight, or did it take some time? My wife and I actually knew each other in high school. She was a few years behind me. She was a freshman when I was a senior, and we knew each other through that, and her older sister was in my class, so we always sort of knew each other, and she grew up, spent most of her childhood really like a mile down the road from from where I grew up. So we've known each other for a while, but we didn't get together until maybe 6 or 7 years after high school. We actually ran into each other just by sheer chance at a supermarket and got to talking and just sort of went from there. And it was just sort of a lucky chance meeting that really blossomed and became a wonderful thing. And I think that's one of the main reasons why we both still are huge supermarket people to this day. Like we'll go to the grocery store just for something to do. Christmas teen, like one clown shoe, I too feel a bit starstruck. Thanks for answering my question. You did get my username right on one of your tries. It's pronounced Christmas teen. I have another question for you. What's with the little stocking we can sometimes see in your videos? Does it belong to Adi, or is some random decoration left over from Christmas or something else entirely? That would be the little striped stocking that is visible behind me in the An Atheist Reads videos I've been doing lately. It's right over there. Actually, let me show you. You can't see it with this camera shot, but I will show you over here. For those of you who don't know what they're talking about, it's right there. That is the stocking that is being referred to, and that is a leftover Christmas decoration. It's not it's not the cat's stocking or anything like that. It's just a leftover Christmas decoration, and I don't know why we've left it where it is for so long. We put it up. Oh, it's been up for a while, and whenever we put the Christmas decorations up and take them down, for whatever reason, that just stays up. So that's it. It's just a leftover Christmas decoration that, for whatever reason that I really don't know, we never take down. Kirk Robertson, how would you respond to the Christian apologetic answer to the criticism of the genocide in the Bible by saying that it is just hyperbole along the lines of a sports fan saying, "We slaughtered the other team"? I have actually never heard that argument. That sounds like a really, really weak rationalization. It sounds very similar to the arguments that you will sometimes hear from Christians defending other immoral acts of God in the Bible, like the condoning of slavery. And they'll say, well, slavery was different back then. Or rape. Well, you know, it wasn't really rape. It's not like how it is today. I mean, they equivocate, they rationalize, they try to justify things. The fact is, if you take the Bible as literally true, then you have to accept that the God you believe in, who you believe is a God of love, has repeatedly ordered the mass slaughter of people. And not just soldiers, but innocent people. You have to come to terms with that if you want to be a biblical literalist and you want to believe that the God of the Bible is real and is literally as he is described and has literally done the things depicted in the Bible. That is what you must accept. Jason Payne, can you say something more in detail about what you like about Kubrick movies? They just don't do it for me. There are few movies that I started and never finished, and both 2001 and Clockwork Orange are on that list. Perhaps you can give me a better appreciation for his films. Well, first of all, if you really have never seen the film of A Clockwork Orange all the way through to the end, you owe it to yourself at least once to watch it all the way through to the end, because it has one of my favorite endings of any Kubrick film. I suppose what I appreciate most about Kubrick is his restraint. More than any other major filmmaker that I can think of, at least any major American filmmaker, because Andrei Tarkovsky is a lot like this as well. Kubrick is able to maintain a distance, a separation from his subjects, from his actors, from his stories, etc. There's a feeling of removal. Like Kubrick's camera is watching, not necessarily participating or pulling you in. And that restraint, that understatement, is very appealing to me, and makes for very powerful drama and very powerful presentation, I think. It's just that, and maybe that's just a matter of taste. and that also requires you as an audience member to pay attention. Kubrick makes films that you have to watch. He does not reward short attention spans. He doesn't pander to his audience. He's not constantly checking up on you to make sure you're awake, to make sure that you're entertained. He's not the sort of desperate, pandering, manic, let me entertain you sort of filmmaker that many, many filmmakers, both of his era and through to today, are. Good filmmakers and bad filmmakers. And I appreciate that about Kubrick. I appreciate that he rewards patience, he rewards attention, he rewards intelligence, and he makes films that invite you to question and to discuss and to ask and to wonder and to ponder. And I really, really appreciate that about Kubrick. I appreciate that he deals with really big, ambitious themes in his movies, and he's willing to put really complex things in there that aren't spelled out, that are there and are clearly present, but he doesn't tell you what everything means or what everything is doing there. And yet at the same time, he's also able to make narrative films. One of my other filmmakers that I admire, who I've mentioned a few times in this series and others have commented on, is David Lynch. And David Lynch is similar in the sense that he deals with these very ambitious, very interesting themes, but he usually does it in a way that kind of defies narrative. He's not as interested in a linear story as he is in the themes and the images and the emotions, whereas Kubrick is very interested in the themes and the images, at least as much as David Lynch is, but he also will use them at the service of telling a narrative story. So there are all kinds of things. I could make this whole video just talking about what there is to admire about Stanley Kubrick. Really underrated as a screenwriter. He wrote or co-wrote a lot of his films. Really underrated as a humorist. Some very dry, very funny little snatches of humor in his films, which overall, especially in his later period from, say, 2001 forward, were certainly not comedies, but had little moments of really dark humor here and there. And then, of course, before that, Dr. Strangelove. I almost forgot the title of Dr. Strangelove. Dr. Strangelove is just a hilarious movie. So a very versatile filmmaker, and as technically superb as any director ever. One of the most technically perfect, technically superb, technically skilled filmmakers that has ever lived, Stanley Kubrick. I'm going to take a wild stab at pronouncing this one and say that it is Cohen 03. Steve, how does the reaction of atheists to your men's rights movement video affect your view of the atheist movement, if at all? Background, it makes me really sad. The fact that so many self-labeled atheists/skeptics can embrace such a socially reactionary movement makes me want to not identify as an atheist. Now, I had before detected inklings of irrationality in the atheist movement, e.g. denial of the historical Jesus, but this makes me want to jump ship. Tell me why I'm wrong. Well, you're wrong for a couple of reasons. The first one, the most obvious one, is unless you're planning on adopting some sort of religious belief, you're always going to be an atheist. It's really not possible to jump ship from the atheist community as long as you're an atheist, because that's the one belief that defines the boundaries of the community. Now, obviously, I'm defining it in the broadest possible sense. I mean, if you define atheist community to mean everyone who is an atheist. You could also define it a bit more narrow. You could say that it only includes atheists who are politically active or atheists who are actively engaged in conversations with other atheists and with religious folks and whatever. But even then, the atheist community is no different than any other community as far as I can tell in that sense. There's irrationality, there are fringe groups, there are uncles from out of town, as it were, who everybody just sort of puts up with and rolls their eyes and goes, oh God, why does he have to come here? In every group. You can't escape it. Atheists are no different than anybody else. Some of us are really smart and really sharp, and some of us don't know our ass from our elbow, and that's just the way it is. One of the things that we need to watch as atheists is that atheism definitely encourages a sense of smugness among us. It's sort of like the hipster effect. We see ourselves as a minority. We perceive that we are a member of a relatively small group that gets it. we have the right answer and everybody outside of our group has the wrong answer, and it's easy to start to think of yourself as superior because of that, or as more clever or hipper or cooler or whatever, and we're very susceptible to that as atheists, and you see that a lot in the atheist community on the internet and elsewhere. I mean, you see that actually a lot more often than you see sexism and misogyny and the other things that are negative about our community. And it's something we need to watch, and it's something that we are all prone to, myself included. Absolutely, I am an insufferably smug bastard a lot of the time, and it's worth noting, and it's worth being aware of, and it's worth, you know, trying to keep a lid on, at least every now and then. And the men's rights movement reaction, the reaction to my men's rights movement video, is an illustration of that. Atheists may be right about the existence of God, but it doesn't mean that we're right about everything. And the fact that there are a vocal, very strident portion of atheists that identify as men's rights activists, yeah, it's dismaying to me because I find the men's rights movement to be repellent. I mean, I'm absolutely disgusted by it. But I wouldn't expect anything else from our movement, because our movement is made up of people, and we're not a monolith. We're a patchwork crazy quilt of all kinds of different people that are just united by the single belief that gods don't exist. And unfortunately, or fortunately, or really just unavoidably, I don't even need to make any sort of a value judgment about it. That's just the way things are when you have a group of people. Some of us are gonna get it. Some of us aren't. We're gonna agree on lots of stuff. We're gonna disagree on lots of stuff. It's just the way it is. Afterthought BTW. You're probably sick and tired of this subject by now, so I'll try to broaden it a little. But do you think that affirmative action is counterproductive? That is, bigots are actually given a reasonable complaint if a Caucasian, say, gets beaten to a job by an African American despite having a better resume, interviewing better, etc., surely because of his race and affirmative action. Isn't it understandable that that person feels persecuted? Insert your gender or whatever you want, rather than race. I think in that particular situation that you're describing, it would be reasonable for that person who was passed over for the job to feel that they had been treated unfairly, but I think it's very important to draw a distinction between you being treated unfairly as an individual in a given situation and that mistreatment being representative of a broader persecution of people like you. I think that is the distinction that the men's rights movement, for the most part, either is incapable or unwilling of making. There's a difference between you being mistreated and a broad, systematic mistreatment of people like you, which is what I would define as persecution. And as far as affirmative action in general, I think affirmative action is a good thing as long as it is properly applied. I don't think it should be used to promote tokenism. I don't think it should be used as an excuse for hiring people just purely because of their race. I think it should be used to encourage the hiring of deserving, skilled people who are suited for the position, and to have the total number of people that are hired for those positions be ethnically diverse, be racially diverse. That's to me is the real use and the real utility and the real value of affirmative action. It shouldn't be used to establish and enforce quotas. It should be used to encourage diversity. So no, I don't have a problem with affirmative action. And in situations where affirmative action is used in an unjust way, where someone is denied a job that they are clearly the most qualified person for purely because of a racial bias, I think that that's something that needs to be corrected. I think that we should try to avoid those sorts of things as much as possible, but I don't think that those situations are justification for doing away with affirmative action completely. I think you can see that affirmative action has had a very positive effect in higher education, in the workplace in general, in management, in leadership positions in business, etc. And I think you can also see that there's still a long way to go, and that it is still a necessary thing. MG6960, Steve, question for the show. My friend and I were recently talking about the horrendous, in my opinion, movies, like Scary Movie and Date Movie and Epic Movie, etc. These movies are not funny in the least, and yet they keep making them, so clearly there are enough people out there that enjoy them. Then I tried to compare them to movies I do think are funny, like Airplane, Spaceballs, and Galaxy Quest. What is your opinion as to what makes a good comedy or a truly funny parody/satire movie? Thanks. What makes a good comedy, and in particular a good spoof movie, since you brought up the Airplane and the movies, the secret ingredient is fairly obvious, but it must not be that obvious because it's missing in a lot of these comedies lately. The movies, the failed, shitty spoof movies that everybody hates, except for the people that go to see them. It's jokes. Jokes. A comedy should have jokes. Or if not jokes, something funny about it, a humorous point of view, a slanted viewpoint, a perspective, a voice, a cockeyed way of looking at things, a purpose, something. And the movies don't have those. The movies, Scary Movie, I'll confess, I actually kind of like the first two Scary Movies. I will admit with a little bit of embarrassment that I really enjoyed the first two Scary Movies. After that, they kind of lose me. But you know, Epic Movie, Date Movie, all those, the ones that are usually referenced as, you know, movies, they don't have jokes. They just have references to other movies. Like really flat, just obvious references. Like there's not a joke. There's nothing being said. There's no comment being made. It's just, let's bring people in who are dressed like characters from other movies. Hey, did you see that movie? We saw it too. Here it is. You know. And it's just horrible. It's not funny at all because it's not there. There's no joke. Where's the joke? Why is it funny? You know. Why is it funny? There's no joke. And another thing that makes those movies so unappealing, to me at least, is how contemptful they are of the things that they're making fun of, or acting like they're making fun of, the things that they're referencing. They have such contempt for those things. It's such a cynical, dark, sort of angry way of looking at things. Other spoof movies, really successful spoof movies, like Airplane, which is probably still the best spoof movie, or The Naked Gun, or Hot Shots. They make those same sorts of references. They have characters in their movies doing things from other movies, but there's always a joke to it. It's always done for a humorous purpose, not just to show the audience something familiar. And you can tell that there's affection for the things that they're making fun of. When you watch Airplane and you see how carefully they recreate that dry tone of a disaster movie, of an airport movie, and how they recreate those characters and those situations and that style of dialogue and all of those things, it's done with such attention to detail. And even though, yes, they are making fun of it, they're saying, look at this, look how absurd this is funny. It's also obvious that they have some affection for it, that they don't hate it. It's not done out of hatred or anger or bitterness. It's done out of a celebration of something that's become very goofy and very campy. And that makes it enjoyable to watch. It's the same reason why Mystery Science Theater is so much fun to watch, because even though they are playing characters that hate the movies, you can tell most of the time that the performers, the writers, etc., they don't hate these movies. If they really hated these movies, they wouldn't be doing a television show about it. And it wouldn't be such a joyful, happy exercise. And that's something that's missing from those movies. It's not a joyful, happy exercise. It's bitter and mercenary and cynical and just depressing. And it's not even funny. It's okay to be bitter and cynical and bitter and depressing if that's what your voice is. But if you're making a comedy, it should also be funny. And, I mean, that's such a basic ingredient of comedy, and yet it's largely missing from those movies. Oh, boy. Okay. Well, you know what that sound means. It's time for...
the lightning round. Rapid fire questions, glib and adequate answers.
We begin with MD20GM. Steve, my question is as follows. How do you keep your penis from hanging into the water when you sit on the toilet? Well, first you take a piss to make sure you don't have to pee, and then when you sit down, you just kind of prop it up on the edge of the toilet, the rim, so it kind of hangs over. And if you have a nice clean toilet, there's nothing to worry about. No disease risk there at all. Altecro3, hey Steve, what would you rather fight? 1 horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses? That is easy. The horse-sized duck. And after you kill it, you'll be eaten for months. Bassbait, what are your thoughts on Edward Current? And only kind of related, what are your thoughts on The Amazing Atheist? Edward Current is awesome. Amazing Atheist, I am subscribed to, but I almost never watch. So, JVC Cam 96. How do you sleep at night knowing there is no God? Very, very, very peacefully. I figure I'm practicing for when I'm dead. Jonah Bloom, Steve, how do you keep your beard looking so luxurious? I wash it every day with soap. It's important to keep it trimmed too. Sometimes it gets too bushy and I have to shave it back a little, but yeah. Pay attention. You just pay attention to your beard. It'll look fine. Terry James, what are your favorite animated films? My favorite American animated film is probably The Iron Giant. I love The Iron Giant. My favorite overall, there are some Japanese animated films that I'm really fond of that I think I've mentioned before, like The Grave of the Fireflies is just a beautiful movie. Wings of Oniamis is another one that I just love. Yeah. South Park, the South Park movie. Team America, World Police, those are animated movies that I enjoy. Tristan Vick, who'd win in a fight? Captain Kirk or Captain Benjamin Sisko? Now, see, that would be one for those sadistic choice videos I did a while back. Oh, that is tough. In a fight, I gotta go with Sisko. I gotta go with Sisko. He is a bad motherfucker. No disrespect to Captain Kirk, but I think Sisko could take him. And I don't think that he would raise even the slightest glisten of sweat on his magnificent bald head. Hey, that is it. That's it for the lightning round. That's it for the questions. Before I get out of here, though, let me do a shout out. The shout out this week is an official shout out to someone who I mentioned in passing a few weeks ago, and that is, well, you know him as PW Swivel. His official YouTube handle is DC Freer, but everybody knows him as PW Swivel. He does really great videos. Actually, everybody doesn't know him as PW Swivel. That's the problem. Everybody should know him, and they don't. He has too few subs, and I would like to correct that. He makes really awesome videos, animated videos, where he speaks through the character of the Frankenstein monster, and he uses a lot of other classic Universal horror monster images in some of his videos. In the I Am Not a Monster video, there's the Mummy and Dracula and the Wolfman, and I love the Universal monster movies, so seeing the Karloff Frankenstein sort of co-opted for those videos is just delightful to me. And he's a really smart, really sharp, really compelling atheist voice. He did a video not too long ago about the Scheibels, the faith healers who allowed their child to die because they decided to pray instead of take the child to the hospital. That was a really wonderful, sort of righteously indignant video on that subject, and kind of brought the whole atheist activism thing into focus. Why are atheists so compelled to continue to have these discussions, continue to have these arguments, continue to fight these battles? One very good reason is because of cases like the Scheibels that illustrate the kind of destruction and harm that religion can cause, not just to innocent children, although obviously in that case that is very apparent, but to society as a whole, to all of us. It was a great video, and PW Swivel does great work in general, and you should goddamn well subscribe to that channel if you're not subscribed to it already. So that is it for this week. I will be back again next week to do this all over again, but for that to happen, you have to ask. So if you have a question for me that you want to hear me talk about in the next video in this series, leave a comment on this video, ask me that question. I will get to as many of them as I possibly can. Thank you so much for watching. Take it easy. I will see you next week.